So I sat down and wrote every fragrance that I feel is truly worth trying, because fragrance is very subjective, so it's kind of silly for me to come out and say these are the best 10 fragrances for fall for everyone. But that being said, I tried a lot of crap out there. Things that are redundant, things that have horrible performance, things that just aren't worth it at all. They weren't even worth getting the 2 milliliter sample. They weren't worth even spraying it on my arm at a department store. And of those, these are the 39 that I wrote down that I feel like were worth it. They were worth the time. Do I love all of them? Do I have full bottles of all of them? No. But I do think that they taught me something. They gave me something else. They opened my perspective on fragrances. And I think that they're all really good for the fall. So this is not including winter fragrances. It's not including things like your Tony Iommi, your Carlisle, your deeper, darker, Royal Tobacco scents. It's not that. This is more of your fresher, transitional weather, easy to wear fragrances. As always, there's no sponsorships, no affiliates, no nothing influencing this list. There's going to be 22 niche, there's going to be 11 designer, and there's going to be 6 cheapies. That's a total of 39 fragrances mentioned. I'm going to go over them briefly. In the timestamp below, I'm going to preface each timestamp. N stands for niche, D stands for designer, C stands for cheapies. So you can go and move around and explore the list however you prefer. And this is like a marathon for me, okay? So I'm going to be talking a lot over the next bit and just kind of going over these things super briefly to give you an idea why I think they were worth trying for me. I'm going to start this with Nishane A. I'm going to tie it together with Lira. And the reason I'm going to tie them together is they're both kind of lemony vanilla fragrances, to me at least. Lira, I actually think smells better, but it leans feminine. And it's just the perfect gourmand, like a lemon bundt cake with caramel. And that lemon bundt cake vibe really just adds an element of freshness that makes it so suitable for the fall. And I'm not really even into gourmands, but when you throw in that lemon with the vanilla and it creates that almost fresh vanilla vibe, I'm just all about it. Now, Nishane A. Annie is the more masculine version. It has better performance, and it also has spices in there, things like ginger that kind of just make it more manly. And I find Annie to be a bit more addictive as well, but I find Lira to be better smelling. I don't even know if that makes sense. But it's like with Annie, I just can't stop smelling it, like trying to figure out what it is. If I were to recommend one over the other, if you're a dude, I would recommend Annie. A girl, I would recommend Lira, but really you could try both. Next is Parfum de Marly Althar. Now, if you saw my review on it, I was a bit critical of this one. I thought it was a bit boring. It's kind of like vanilla with a bit of a burnt sugar accord that makes it a little interesting, and it's got a freshness coming into it that's like from an aroma chemical. It actually is quite addictive. I would say that I felt it was a bit basic to be in the niche category and to warrant the price tag. But having sit with it longer, it's my most complimented Parfum de Marly by far, and it performs like a beast. And those things I've learned to appreciate as I've gone on. Plus, fragrance is very subjective, so you might really love Althar. I think it's one of the really good ones out there and definitely worth trying. Creed Viking. Now, this isn't going to be for everyone. If you're super young, you might think this is way too old because it has an Old Spice kind of vintage vibe to it. And you might also, if you don't like mint, you might not like this one, but it's really clove freshened with a mint with an old school woody vetiver base. And the whole thing is super complex. There's nothing else like it out there. It's actually very fresh, very masculine, and perfect for the fall. And it's really something else. I can't think of anything out there that smells like Creed Viking. African leather. Now, I'm not a big fan of leather fragrances. I do like some of them, but it's one of those notes that a lot of the samples that just weren't worth it for me were simply because I'm not a huge fan of leather. But for some reason, African leather still just gets me. The leather isn't super prominent, and it's not like boot barn leather or any kind of weird, almost honky-tonk leather. It's a very fresh, clean leather, and it's mixed with spices that give it this dirty vibe. It's not animalic. I've read that. It's not that to me at all. It's almost like a dirty YSL Tuxedo that lasts longer and performs better. It has that same kind of color to it with that almost like weird leather kind of spices thing going. Very hard to describe, but actually pretty easy to like. Creed Royal Oud. This is your cash money, smells like cigars and cedar wood, super manly smell. And I absolutely love it. I think this is one of the more polarizing ones. It is more old school, but it's just super fresh for a woody fragrance. Like typically woody fragrance tend to be pretty dark, but Royal Oud, when I spray it on and I'm wearing it, it really is uplifting and bright, like a very bright cedar wood smell that I think is absolutely amazing. It's one of my favorites of all time, and I think it's one of the best offerings from Creed. Bois de Portugal, this one's even more polarizing than any other Creed I could really think of besides Royal Mayfair, but Royal Mayfair is not on this list. Bois de Portugal is your powdery, fresh barbershop spice that's done in such a way it's so pure, it's so fresh. It just blasts you in the face with the embodiment of masculine spice. And then it has, in the dry down, these more foresty, woody aspects coming in that are still fresh. And it's just a very fresh, super masculine, old school, gentleman, beautiful fragrance. I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorites from Creed. I actually get good performance out of it. And it's the ultimate barbershop scent. It replaced so many barbershops for me. Like I ended up getting rid of so many of my barbershop fragrances because I would always just say Bois de Portugal is better. Like I would never reach for another barbershop over that one. Xerjoff Naxos. Now this one I've heard been reformulated, and the newer bottles do look a bit different to me, like a lighter yellow, but I have a 2021 bottle. I'm going on that. Naxos just smells amazing, gets good performance. It gets so many compliments. It's a boozy fragrance. It's kind of hard to describe it. It's not my favorite thing out there because I get a bit of a medicinal vibe from it, almost like a ointment, like a tiger balm or something. It's weird. It's different. There's nothing else like it. People around me seem to really like it, and it performs well. Like that's what Naxos is for me. Boozy, honey, sweetness with a bit of a almost kind of like a tiger balm menthol vibe to it that freshens it up. And then it's not as tobacco forward as I see it being presented. I get tobacco leaf in the base, but like a fresh style of almost like the tobacco plant. Just a really nice fragrance. And I'm not one who's big on presentations, but that thick glass with that whole metal cap and everything, it just feels like value in my hand. Xerjoff 40 Knots. This is one of the epitomes of niche for me. It's very unique. It's very fresh. I love it. I get a lot of compliments on it, but it's not just about that. This one tells a story. Like it opens up like a salty marine for sure. 100%. I'm like, dang, this is like literally a salty, you're on a boat marine smell. And it quickly transitions into a Coca-Cola amber with, I don't really like Obsession for Men by Calvin Klein, but that type of powderiness that it has. Mixed with the smoothened out with like a Coca-Cola amber, and it just has this freshness to it that I absolutely love. It's also one of those ones that just grows on you over time, and I've worn 40 knots enough to know like every time now that I spray it, I just smile. It just brings back so many good memories. And deep in the dry down, it becomes similar to Creed Royal Oud. So it really has like 3 fragrances in one. It's cozy, it's fresh, and I think it's great for the fall. Xerjoff Torino 22. This is on a lot of my list. I think it's absolutely great. I think it's one of the best offerings from Xerjoff. It really kind of has, there's a blending style that Baccarat Rouge started, and Oud for Greatness has it, and Haultain has it. I don't know what it is. I just know it when I smell it. And none of these things really smelled all that similar to each other. There's just a connection that can easily be made with that saffron and how the woods are. And Torino 22 has that, but it also has eucalyptus freshening it up, making it more appropriate for like the fall season or for different climates, and just a bit more versatile. And for me, easier to like. It's a very masculine, fresh take. The Baccarat Rouge style of DNA, and having smelt Baccarat Rouge, Haultain, Oud for Greatness, and Torino 22 side by side, it's the thickest and it has the most depth. Like it clearly has the highest quality ingredients from what I'm smelling of any of them, just because of the boldness, the thickness, and just how well it's done. Amazing performance and an awesome fragrance. Amouage Epic Man. This is your incense, almost like you're burning incense in a forest. It's not like a bright green, it's a darker green with an incense smell, super masculine, and it also is mature. I don't think this one's going to be for everyone out there. I think Creed Royal Oud, Bois de Portugal, and Epic Man are in that more polarizing category where you want something unique and something just different. And I think Epic Man is definitely worth trying. It's one of the easier Amouages to like because it's really, at the end of the day, like a nice dark, thick forest with that Amouage incense, and it's not too hard to wear. And I don't think it's too dark for the fall. I think that's a good time to wear it. Noir 29 by Le Labo. Now, this is going to be my favorite fragrance on the entire list after looking at them, and that's just a personal preference thing. I like close to nature scents. I like gardenias. I like green iris tweed. I like carnal flower, things that just get me close to earth and nature. And Noir 29 is just the epitome of that for me in the fall. I would almost say it's a fall weather gardenia. And the reason I would say that is, yes, it smells really close to nature, but it has almost a darkness to it. It's like you're in a garden and it's raining, and you're picking up that rainy air with the garden smell, and the clouds are dark and gray. It's really that vibe, very comforting, almost like you're sitting in the house on a rainy day and hear the rain outside, but at the same time, very fresh, almost like what you would expect from a gardenia, close to nature. And it's one of the most comforting, amazing scents I've ever tried in my life. That being said, it's not for everybody. Some people just don't like any Le Labos at all, but I still think it's worth trying. Creed Spice and Wood. Now, this one has bad performance. It's super expensive. The only reason I'm saying it's worth trying is it just smells so good. It's just so well blended. It's a clove, cedar wood, it's almost like the perfect blend between something vintage and something modern. It's in the in-between world, where I'm like, oh, this is like modern, but it also is old school. It's very handsome. It's something I would imagine someone like 007 would wear. Just clean, easy to like, non-offensive, but so well blended with the apple, with the clove, and with the cedar wood. It just is its own smell. And I've been seeing Creed at Dillard's now. So if you live by a Dillard's or a Neiman Marcus or anything, try putting Creed the Spice and Wood on and see what you think. Definitely worth your time for that. Zoologist Squid. I don't have full bottles of everything, but I have full bottle of this one, and I'm glad I do. This is an oceanic, but it has heft, it has depth, it has darkness to it, it has a sweetness to it. It has an amberiness to it, and it's something else, totally different. What I get from it is a deep, dark blue, semi-sweet amber with a bit of a salty ocean air smell, and incense and ink. Okay, it's a lot at once. I feel like, though, they hit the nail on the head with that one because it's easier to like. I don't like a lot of Zoologists, and it sucks when something's so challenging I don't know the right setting to wear it. But I feel Zoologist Squid, even though it's totally out there and something else being primarily an ink, dark blue fragrance, it is easy to wear somewhat, and it really gives me the vibe of being on the ocean, being on the beach, looking at like literally the moonlight water while I'm listening to Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. It has this dark, mysterious, but very calming and very nice vibe to it. I think it's perfect for the fall. Even though it's an oceanic, it's not super fresh and salty and bright air. It's something else that's deeper and comforting and relaxing and calming. Some people can't stand it. Definitely not a blind buy thing, but I think it's 100% worth sampling. Amouage Jubilation XXV. Now, this is a Middle Eastern fragrance that's just fresh. Okay, it's not like other Middle Eastern fragrances. When you hear Middle Eastern fragrance, they kind of all go in this category of this resinous, dark, woody, pungent smell. But Jubilation 25 is like a fresh fragrance. It's not oud, it's blackberry and incense. It's got a really nice, almost pancake-like sweetness to it. It's very aerial. And honestly, I just love it. I think it sets such a bar in just its scent profile for what a niche fragrance should be because of how creative it is, but how easy it is to like. There's nothing else like it in the world, and it's super great smelling. The problem I have with this is the performance is trash, horrible. I'm still going to say it's worth sampling to try it out and see what it is. But if I were to let go of a bottle, that one would be the next one up to go because the performance is so bad. Even though I love the scent so much, it really kind of sucks. But it really raised the bar for what a niche fragrance should be. And it opened my mind to what a new Middle Eastern fragrance can be. Arabian Oud Royal Oud. Okay, there was a time where I didn't have any true Eastern ouds in my collection, and Middle Eastern oud is difficult to like. It's an acquired taste. It's one of those things when you first have it, something like it would be like similar to like black coffee or like a really good cheese when you've only had like fake craft cheese your whole life. It's one of those things where it's a bit pungent and a bit difficult to like, but the more you use it, the more you can't imagine life without it. Like, I love Middle Eastern oud now, and I think the best intro to Middle Eastern oud would be Royal Oud by Arabian Oud because of how well it's blended. It has that true Eastern oud smell just at the right dose where it kind of nudges you into that world, and it's blended perfectly with rose. I don't typically like rose. I actually can't think of a fragrance that I really like that has rose in it. It smells like old ladies to me, but in this one, blended with that Eastern semi-animalic oud and just blended to perfection, it gives it a freshness. It's one of the best smelling fragrances I've tried. Performance, like if you get it with the oil, the performance is good, but if you just get the spray, performance isn't so great. But it's worth trying to really introduce you to that world of Middle Eastern true oud fragrances. Next is Frederic Malle Promise. Now this one isn't totally for me. I don't necessarily 100% like it, but I respect it. It has beast mode performance and it gives a fall vibe that nothing else gives. Like, it's not a fuzzy sweater, pumpkin spice fall fragrance to me, because it focuses on apple and you get apple cider with it. So it's like almost like a dehydrated apple, an interesting dense apple scent, but it has apple cider providing a freshness to it. And it just makes me think of bobbing for apples. It makes me think of apple cider. It's cozy. It's super unique. It's very niche. It's very out there. It's definitely not for everyone. But it offers something so interesting, and it's complex. It evolves over its life. It has great performance. I think it's worth trying because some people absolutely love it, and I could totally see why. Initio Rehab. Now, I'll be honest here. I go more for Spicebomb Eau de Toilette because the differences don't really justify the price increase. But if you're one of those people that just sticks to niche and that's all you want in your collection, Initio Rehab is definitely worth trying. Just that Spicebomb DNA. It's a little bit better than the EDT and Spicebomb Extreme, just smoother, and it has that signature Initio kind of musky base. Compliment magnet, excellent performance, and like the Spicebomb and like that DNA, it's just a quintessential fall fragrance. Parfums de Marly Layton. Now this isn't for everyone. Again, a lot of people get a medicinal Vicks-like smell from it. I get that on the opening, but it smooths out so much. I just love Layton, and if you haven't tried Layton, I would recommend getting on that in the beginning because it's easy to like and it's something unique. People can say, oh, it's a copy. I don't know what Layton copies. I don't see it as a copy. I see it as a totally original fragrance that took a risk with that menthol note and it came out on top. I love it. I love Layton. Amyris Homme Eau de Toilette. Now, a lot of people prefer the Extrait. I haven't tried the Extrait. I've only tried the Eau de Toilette. A lot of people say they get bad performance. I don't get bad performance. I get good performance. And I get things from it that nobody else really gets. I get a really nice creamy shampoo smell. And a lot of people find this fragrance super unique. I don't 100%. There is a uniqueness to it. It does have a buttery, almost coconut base, but the freshness of the soapiness on top and the way that it's bold and thick and juicy makes me feel like it'd be perfect for the fall for people that want to smell like they just took a shower, but they don't want something too fresh. They want something with a bit of heft to it, a bit of boldness and juiciness to it. Amyris Homme is my favorite from the MFK brand. Grand Soir, definitely worth trying. Amber vanilla, somewhat linear. I could see somebody not liking it because it is kind of boring. It doesn't really evolve over its life, but man, that opening and the way it is, it's just such a quintessential fall fragrance. It has a pumpkin, fresh, almost like ambery vanilla, really nice vibe, and it gets a lot of compliments. One of the things I love about it is it lasts all day and then some. A super long lasting, almost pumpkin spice, vanilla, amber fragrance. Absolutely love it. Bond number 9, New York Nights. Now, I work with somebody and I've shown them like almost every fragrance out there, and this was the only one that they went out and got a decant of. It's also Phantom's favorite cologne in the world. New York Nights, and it's grown on me. I actually am starting to really like it. As a gourmand, it's so different because it's like banana pudding with a bit of a bubblegum freshness. It's fresh enough for the spring, but I think it also would work great in the fall. Just banana pudding as the best smelling banana pudding in the world. That's what New York Nights is. There's nothing else like it out there. It's worth sampling for just how unique it is and honestly just how good it smells. If you're one of those people that just you're not as much into the artistry, but you're into just smelling good, I think you'll be happy with this. And also, if you're into the artistry, I think you'll be happy because there's not many banana puddings, and this one just smells amazing. All right, now we're going into designer. My favorite designer of all time is Nouveau Monde by Louis Vuitton. Absolutely love it. It's not for everybody because it has an animalic nature to it, and it wasn't my favorite at first smell. If I walked in, smelled it on paper, probably put it down and be like, oh, that's kind of gross. But I kept wearing it, and as it dries down, it becomes, the animalic dials down, and it just blends so perfectly with the leather. Again, I don't really like leather fragrances, but this is my favorite leather fragrance of all time, one of my favorite fragrances of all time, because it has a freshness to it, similar to what Ombre Nomade has, and that's the only way the two are similar to me, is that freshness. But really, this one is fresh with the leather, with an animalic element that just makes it the perfect leather. Always feels super classy, super next level, high grade, literally it's leather done to perfection. Dior Homme Intense. Now, this is rated one of the best fragrances of all time. It hasn't fully grown on me yet, but I respect that it's worth trying, and I could see why it grows on people because it's very unique. It's a very lipsticky makeup bag fragrance. I would say this one's more sensual than it is handsome. That's just my personal opinion. I don't think it's the most masculine thing in the world, but I think it's unique, and I can totally see why people like it so much. If you're really turned off by Iris, you can skip this one. If you don't know if you like Iris or not, this is definitely the one to try to find out. YSL Tuxedo. This one I'm a bit at a fence with because I prefer the inspired version, Moustache Eau de Parfum. But at the same time, if you're at an Neiman Marcus, you can just sample YSL Tuxedo. They typically have it out. But YSL Tuxedo, it does smell absolutely incredible. I love it. It was one of my favorite fragrances at a time. It got boring to me, and I got really sick of the bad performance on it. That being said, if you get a chance to try it out, it's definitely worth trying out. I could see why people like it. It's unique. It's a vanilla, but it's got this boozy bourbon vanilla base, and it just has its own character. It really does. And it's fresh, and it's super nice to like. Anytime I've worn it, I'm like, this is just such a good fall fragrance. It's the perfect blend of sweet and fresh with the booziness. I think it smells great. Again, I just got bored of it, and the performance is lackluster to me, especially given the price point. Tom Ford Oud Wood. Again, bad performance, but it's a nice soapy oud. Like, it's a Western interpretation of oud. If you're not really into oud fragrances, this one's still definitely still one to try because it's really in a category of its own with how fresh it is and how it does the oud. Super classy. Unfortunately, doesn't last long at all, but really easy to like. This might be a heartbreaker fragrance. If I were to pick one to skip, it would be this one because it's easy to like, it's really good, it's in a category of its own, but the performance is bad, and I haven't found a substitute for it yet. So, like Dolce & Gabbana, the one, it's like, dang, man, there's always a catch, and then it kind of breaks your heart because you're like, if only I could find that lasts longer. And that becomes a whole quest that can be a waste of time. Tom Ford Tuscan Leather, a great fragrance. The raspberry, again, I don't really like leather, but the raspberry leather in this, the smoothness of this, just always nice to wear. Really just something so unique, and so it represents such a historical fragrance. I don't think there's anything like it. I don't really like ombre leather that much, but I like this one. I just feel this one's got more character in my opinion, and is definitely worth trying. Also a raspberry fragrance for the fall. There aren't too many of those out there. We're going into discontinued Gucci's now. Gucci Envy's got it's a cardamom fragrance. There's nothing else like it. I can't say too much about it. It represents his story when Tom Ford was still with Gucci. So it's technically a Tom Ford fragrance under Gucci, and it really just smells how the color is, that lime green almost. It's got a dirtiness to it. It's everything a designer should be. If you could imagine cardamom and vanilla, but there's something else that just makes it dirty, fresh, and super masculine, you're getting in the ballpark of it. I think Gucci Envy is one of the greatest fragrances of all time. I absolutely love it. It gets great performance. It's worth trying if you come across a sample of it. Gucci Pour Homme 1 is another great discontinued from Gucci. I'm not really into Pour Homme 2 that much. I know people are gonna, but that's not what this video is about. It's about fall fragrances. This is kind of like Royal Oud's darker brother with not as good performance. If you like cedarwood, you like royal oud, you'd probably like this. It has a very cedar wood, but it's more resinous and more deep. And I actually get way more church vibes and gentleman vibes from this one than I do from Creed Royal Oud, which I feel is more versatile. This is actually a great fragrance, definitely worth trying. It represents something in history for sure. The thing I'd say bad about it is I just don't get good performance out of it, and it's super expensive. Gucci Guilty Absolute is that petrol with almost that gasoline, almost Band-Aid smell with leather. You would never expect Gucci to have released anything like that. Super creative, and there's nothing else like it at all. You could say it's kind of in a similar category as Fahrenheit with that old school gasoline smell, but it's totally different because it doesn't have all those spices with it. It's just gasoline and leather. Like if you like the smell of gas, this is one to try for sure. If you don't want to smell like gas or plastic Band-Aids, I understand that. You could skip this one, but it might be worth trying just to see the creativity behind it. Terre d'Hermès Parfum. This is a great one. Terre d'Hermès DNA is awesome with that whole, you're almost under an orange tree smelling the earth mixed with the orange peel, and it just has a classy freshness. I like the Pure Parfum version more because I feel like it's just more smooth. I get a bit better performance out of it, and it just has a smoother, slightly darkened component to it that I absolutely love. Super classy. A lot of us know Terre d'Hermès. If you haven't tried it, it's worth trying. Even if you're in the niche world, if you haven't tried this one, it's not like a typical designer. Carolina Herrera Privé. Now this is another discontinued fragrance. I let go of it because I was in this phase where I was getting mad because the more I liked it, the more I was sad about it being discontinued. So I ended up giving it to a friend of mine, and I kind of still wish I haven't. It's just the ultimate boozy fragrance. It's super nice, super boozy, an awesome designer that should have never been discontinued. Hard to describe the scent profile completely, but if you could just imagine a boozy designer that just is done really well, if you're into stuff like that or boozy fragrances, Carolina Herrera Privé is definitely worth trying. Spicebomb Eau de Toilette, a lot of us have tried it. I still love it. I don't care what anyone says about it, and I actually get good performance out of it, and I personally like the scent profile more than the extreme version. I just think it smells better. I think it's fresher, and I get really good performance, tons of compliments. And this is one I would go for before Initio Rehab, and I think it's one of the great fall fragrances. A lot of us have already tried it, but I would think it's worth it if you haven't. For inspired by cheapy fragrances, stuff I really wear often, Bentley Absolute. That's my favorite cheapy fragrance, and it's very similar to Gucci Pour Homme 1. Pretty much the same thing, and if you look online, people are willing to pay $300-$400 for a bottle of Gucci Pour Homme 1, and Bentley Absolute was made by the same perfumer, and you can get it on Amazon for like $30. Smelling them side by side, my wife and I can barely tell the difference. I get better performance from the Bentley Absolute. It's a super nice cedar, masculine, old school fragrance that even if you're a niche head and feel like nothing can surprise you anymore, I feel Bentley Absolute is totally something else. It draws a lot from Creed Royal Oud. They're in a similar class, but like I said with Gucci Pour Homme 1, this is a more resinous, darker take on the Creed Royal Oud DNA. Moustache Eau de Parfum. Now, this is inspired by YSL Tuxedo. It's not the same. It definitely has a different component to it, but I actually like it more than Tuxedo because whatever makes Moustache different makes it more interesting, and I also get way better performance out of it. I'm not going to say it's a replacement for the real thing because they're different enough that I sold my Tuxedo and kept my Moustache. It just has that boozy bourbon vanilla, but it has this addictive kind of sharp smell to it that I really like. I don't know if that's synthetics or not. I like it. That's what it is. One of my favorite fragrances, one of my dumb reaches for the fall for sure. Dossier Citrus Tea. Now this is inspired by Noir 29 by Labo. It is not the same, but man, is it pretty similar, at least for me. It's a bit fresher. That's like the only difference. I've said in a video in the past, if I could wear Noir 29 every day, I would. I get the original, I support the brands, I support the artistry, but I really wanted something like Noir 29 that I could afford to wear every day. Dossier Citrus Tea is a perfect substitute. Again, it's got that stormy weather gardenia thing going, which I feel is very comforting and relaxing for fall weather. Armaf Precieux 1. Now, I originally got this when I thought Aventus Absolute was a limited release. Apparently it's coming back, and that was all just a lie or some kind of cash grab or something. Kind of frustrating. But I actually like the Precieux one enough that I'm just going to stay with that. It's the Aventus DNA. Really sharp, bright. I feel like it's fresher than Aventus Absolute. It lasts longer, it performs better, it's louder. But it's really that Aventus sharp DNA with oatmeal cookie kind of goodness that is blended really well, and it oddly works. You wouldn't think fresh pineapple oak moss would work well with oatmeal cookie, but that's kind of like what I like about it. It's something different, and it's done really well. Gets a lot of compliments, performs really well. I love wearing it personally. Yeah, Armaf Precieux one, that was a good one. Rasasi La Yukawam. Now this is that Tuscan leather DNA with a bit more raspberry. Inspired by Tuscan leather, honestly pretty close, but it has more of a raspberry vibe to it. I kind of burned myself out on that one. Like I wore a lot of it, and I wore a lot of Tuscan leather for a long time. It's unique and I love it. When I return back to it, I'm like, oh, this is better than I remember it being, but I got kind of burned out on it. That being said, for the price and what it's delivering, I think it's worth trying for sure to be a dumb reach everyday wear. Al Haramain Detour Noir. Now, it doesn't smell completely like Layton. It's definitely more synthetic. The opening is more menthol, more Vicks. All that being said, I still like Detour Noir. I still think it's a good fragrance. It's something I could easily afford to wear every day. It's easy to wear in a lot of situations, and the synthetic vibe of it doesn't really bother me that much. I actually think it's a pretty good fragrance for like $26. So it's a good dumb reach for me. A lot of people say the bottles are bad, and I agree. It's got the worst bottle design ever. I can't even stand holding it in my hand. So I get these for like $5 from All Bottles USA, and I just literally open it and just spray it in there, and this is Detour Noir. And I have a good atomizer, good bottle for it. I like Detour Noir. I have like literally no problems with it. It's pretty close to Layton. It kind of is its own thing. I'd say it performs better, but it's not as smooth and not as natural smelling.